What if you died and kept thinking, kept seeing, feeling, remembering? It sounds impossible, but thousands of people around the world say it happened to them. They were declared clinically dead. No heartbeat, no brain function, no signs of life. Dead by every medical standard. And yet, minutes later, they returned. And what they described left even doctors speechless. They say they floated above their bodies. They could see the doctors, the nurses, the equipment. They heard conversations, even ones that happened in other rooms. Some described traveling through a dark tunnel toward a radiant, warm light. Others say they met beings of light or deceased relatives who welcomed them. These are not dreams, not hallucinations. They are detailed, consistent, and deeply emotional memories. And they all happened while the brain was supposedly shut down. These are called near-death experiences, or NDEs. And while the scientific community has spent decades trying to explain them, no theory so far has been able to account for everything they contain. Yes, some say it's the brain's last bursts of energy. Others say it's chemicals like DMT creating vivid hallucinations, or a lack of oxygen. But there's a major problem. How can a brain that is clinically dead, that shows no measurable activity, create clear, structured memories? How can a patient who was unconscious describe a pair of red shoes on top of a cabinet in another room? How can they repeat word for word what a doctor said while they were supposedly gone? These aren't isolated cases. There are thousands, and many have been studied, documented, and confirmed by medical professionals. That's where science begins to struggle, and where Spiritism begins to offer answers. Spiritism, the philosophical doctrine codified by Allan Kardec in the 1800s, teaches that we are not bodies that have a soul. We are souls who temporarily inhabit a body. And during an NDE, what happens is something the Spiritist tradition has described for over 160 years, the partial or temporary separation of the spirit from the body. According to Spiritism, this phenomenon is known as emancipation of the soul. It happens not just at death, but also during sleep, trance, and near-death events. The consciousness, which survives death, leaves the body, but remains aware. It can see, hear, feel, and understand, even without the physical senses. That tunnel, it's the transition between vibrational dimensions. That light, it's the entrance to a higher spiritual realm. The feeling of peace, it's the release from material limits. The presence of loved ones, they are real spirits, waiting to receive us. And the life review, that moment when people say their entire life flashed before them, that's a well-documented process in Spiritism. A rapid panoramic reflection where the soul understands the consequences of its actions, not as punishment, but as learning. But what makes NDEs even more fascinating is what happens after. Most people who return are never the same. They say they've lost their fear of death. They feel more connected to others, to nature, to life itself. They often make big changes, ending toxic relationships, switching careers, helping others. Some develop heightened intuition. Others begin to see the world as deeply spiritual, even if they weren't religious before. Why? Because for a few minutes, they were outside the illusion. They were in touch with the truth behind life. Dr. Bruce Grayson, a respected psychiatrist and NDE researcher, says, "These people aren't hallucinating. Their lives change in permanent and profound ways." Dutch cardiologist Dr. Pim van Lommel led a 10-year study on NDEs in patients with flat brain activity. His conclusion: consciousness may not depend on the brain at all. It might exist independently. And that's exactly what Spiritism has said all along, that the spirit is the true self, that death is just a return to the spiritual world, that we do not cease to exist. We wake up to a deeper reality. And maybe that's the most important message of all. NDEs aren't just about what happens after death. They're a reminder of how we're supposed to live, with more love, more awareness, more responsibility for our actions, more understanding that life doesn't end, it transforms. So the next time someone says, "I was dead for a few minutes," don't just dismiss it. Maybe, in that brief moment, they saw something most of us have forgotten. Maybe they weren't close to dying. Maybe they were closer to the truth than ever before. And maybe you, right now, are being invited to remember you are not a body, you are a spirit, and the journey is far from over.